Welcome, focus learners, to this explainer, The Architecture of Fluency, Mastering Transition Words. Have you ever felt like your communication, just kind of stops and starts? Like your ideas are stranded out there without a clear path between them? Well, if so, you are in exactly the right place. Today, our mission is to completely transform choppy communication into fluent, sophisticated English. Okay, let's dive into this. Our source material paints this absolutely beautiful metaphor of what true fluency actually sounds like. English should flow like a river instead of falling like separate rocks. Think about that for a second. When you hear something that feels incredibly smooth and intelligent, it flows, right? It's like a river where one idea effortlessly carries you straight to the next. On the flip side, when language lacks connection, it's just jarring. It's literally like someone dropping sentences on a page and walking away, leaving them to fall like separate, heavy rocks. Take a look at what our source calls the hot tea tragedy. 8 sentences. I was tired. I went to bed early. I couldn't sleep. I lay awake for 2 hours. I got up and made tea. The tea was too hot. I burned my tongue. The morning was difficult. I mean, it's a tragedy, all right, but mostly because of how flat and completely disconnected it feels. Now, what's really interesting about this is the dramatic before and after makeover. By simply adding 5 words, so, however, eventually, unfortunately, and as a result, the exact same series of events transforms from this choppy, robotic list into a fluid, compelling story. These connectors, they don't just add extra words, they actively reveal the underlying meaning and the relationships between those events. So what exactly are we talking about when we say transition word? Well, think of them as critical bridges. Imagine you have 2 beautiful, completely isolated islands. Island A holds one idea, and Island B holds another. Without a transition word, your listener or your reader is forced to basically jump from A to B, guessing how they actually relate. It's exhausting, isn't it? But when you build a bridge, they can just walk across smoothly. You're explaining the logical relationship for them, making your English feel natural, logical, and honestly, just highly enjoyable to take in. Because different transitions do different jobs, they come in distinct categories. First up is Category 1, the same team words. These are your go-to tools for adding information that's moving in the exact same direction. Let's move to and see how this builds. All right, here are the actual tools in this first category. You've got your casual additions, like also, and your very natural conversational phrases, like what's more. But notice the structural supports sitting right in the middle of our toolbox here. Furthermore and moreover. When you use these, you are adding serious emphasis. They act as heavy-duty, load-bearing bridges that carry extra significant weight. They signal to your audience that this supporting point is a total game changer. It's like noting a project was on time and, moreover, it was under budget. It just packs a punch. But as we all know, we don't always move in the same direction. That brings us to Category 2, the element of surprise. These are contrast words that pivot the direction entirely. And frankly, this is where English gets really interesting because they tell the listener to expect the unexpected. Contrast takes a few different forms. We have the famous direct contrast, however, and the much more resilient, courageous word, nevertheless. That one essentially says, hey, a massive obstacle existed, but we went forward anyway. You also have, on the other hand, for showing 2 sides of a coin, but pay close attention to despite and in spite of. To keep our engineering metaphor alive, these specific bridges have a very strict zoning law. They absolutely must be followed by a noun or a verb ending in ing. For example, despite the rain or despite feeling nervous. You cannot, under any circumstances, say despite it was raining. It's a tiny grammar rule, sure, but mastering it is absolutely essential for your sentence's structural integrity. Next up, we have cause and effect. These words are quite literally everywhere because they explain why something happened or what resulted from a specific action. The options here range from the everyday casual so all the way to the strong formal consequently. Honestly, these are the ultimate tools for sounding logical, organized, and highly intelligent. When you use therefore or as a result, you are proving to your listener that your thoughts aren't just random, even if you literally just came up with them on the spot. They make everything sound like a perfectly organized chain of logical events. Of course, logic often requires order, which is exactly why we need sequence bridges. Whether you're giving instructions or telling a story, you've got to clearly mark the path. First, then, after that, and the much more formal subsequently really help guide the way. But I want you to pay close attention to the concluding step, eventually. The source notes that eventually is totally unique because it carries a deeply relatable emotional weight. It implies this profound sense of relief after a long period of time. It's like saying, I tried for months and eventually I passed the exam. It's a bridge that carries emotion, not just time. Now, beyond just organizing information, transition words are absolutely essential for illustrating and emphasizing your arguments. When you use words like for instance, such as, or in fact, you aren't just making claims anymore. You are proving them with concrete evidence. And we all know proven points are always more convincing than unproven ones. By adding emphasizing words like above all or especially, you give your communication true gravity and presence. You are explicitly telling the listener, hey, pay attention. This right here is the most important part. As you start applying these tools, you really need to watch out for a few common structural failures. The first major engineering flaw learners make is confusing but and however. While they basically mean the same thing, their structure is completely different. But is used inside a single sentence, joining two clauses. However, on the other hand, belongs at the beginning of a new sentence or after a semicolon. Using however correctly in formal writing is not only grammatically safer, but honestly, it just sounds far more thoughtful and sophisticated. It sounds like you actually pause to reflect before making your point. Now we arrive at a mistake so catastrophic, our source actually calls it the double bridge collapse. Consider this statement. Although I was tired, however, I kept studying. So the crucial point is that although already creates the contrast, it doesn't need however as well. You simply cannot use both together. If you do, it's literally like building two heavy bridges for one tiny river. It's way too much. The sentence literally collapses under the weight of double contrasting into a grammatical pile of rubble. Just choose one bridge and let it do its job. Let's anchor this grammar lesson in the real world for a second. A really frequent question is whether these tools are just for essays or if they actually work in speaking too. The answer is absolutely both. But you have to choose the right tool for the environment. In a casual conversation, words like so, but, also, and what's more flow completely naturally. But if you drop a subsequently or a furthermore while just chatting about a movie with a friend, yeah, the bridge is way too formal for the setting. Save consequently and furthermore for your academic writing, professional emails, and big presentation. To pull everything we've learned together, here is one final makeover. We start with 9 choppy, isolated islands of thought about learning English. Then we connect them using 6 transition phrases. As a result, however, for instance, although, consequently, and ultimately. And this brilliantly illustrates that we didn't add any new facts. Not one. We simply connected what was already there. We revealed the meaning. Mastering just a handful of these tools can immediately elevate anyone's English from flat and choppy to completely masterful and flowing. At the end of the day, transition words are the ultimate difference between simply knowing English vocabulary and actually communicating with confidence and flow. They are exactly how you ensure you aren't just understood, but truly heard. So, as you step out of this explainer and back into the real world, I want to leave you with this provocative challenge. Look at the ideas you want to share today. Which bridge will you build in your very next conversation?